fight of the year in the Democratic Party. Should delegates from Michigan and Florida be counted?
Here's the deal. Florida and Michigan were stripped of their delegates because they violated National Democratic Party rules and moved their primaries to earlier dates on the election calendar. But with the race now so close, how those states go could determine who gets the Democratic nomination if their votes are counted. So what to do?
There's a show called Extreme Makeover. Can they have an extreme makeover right now in Florida and Michigan, redo the primaries there?
This morning, you heard a lot of folks saying, people from Florida and Michigan saying, let's do a do-over. Let's have another kind of election.
It's easier said than done, though.
Obviously, there are a lot of questions about the mechanics. How do you do it? When do you do it? Who pays for it?
Two things cannot happen. The Democrats can't go to the convention shutting out the fourth largest state, Florida, and the eighth largest state, Michigan. Second, they can't go to the convention and seat the delegates that come out of a Michigan primary where Obama took his name off the ballot.
Let's revote in Michigan and Florida. Let's end all the suspense. I think we should revote. What's wrong with revoting? Why is the Obama camp so silent on that issue?
The bottom line is you got to play by the rules. We all agreed to the rules earlier in this campaign, Tim, and one campaign now has broken those rules, has decided not to abide by them.
The Clinton campaign did not break the rules.
We both said we weren't going to compete, and now the Clinton campaign is saying, well, we won. Well, how can you win if you weren't competitive? You said you weren't going to participate, and now we've changed the rules to say that we're participating.
What Barack Obama has done is very simple. He has, as a big underdog in this race, competed under the rules for every delegate in every state, and he is ahead. Now, we can't change those rules in the middle of this process.
Everybody, including me, and I think both candidates, wants to find a way to seat Florida and Michigan, but it has to be done in such a way that you don't change the rules in the middle of the game.
Barack Obama believes in inclusivity, but he also believes in playing by the rules, not changing them after the fact. He played by the rules in Michigan. He even went to the lengths of taking his name off the ballot, as did every other candidate except for Hillary Clinton.
Actually, Senator Obama, the pledge that Senator Obama took was, and Senator Clinton took, was not to campaign in either state.
Right.
The rules never said take your name off the ballot.
Senator Clinton is trying to change the rules in Michigan. She's saying, I won't accept a caucus, which is, frankly, up to the state, also the party.
Would you accept the caucus in Michigan?
No, caucuses are undemocratic.
We want to see this resolved. We want the parties to work with the states to come up with a resolution.
My question is, how does the Obama campaign tank these do-overs without appearing to do it publicly, because they can't argue that publicly?
No, they can't argue that publicly.
Publicly, neither wants to stand in the way. I think privately, the Obama campaign is much less enthusiastic for obvious reasons about the idea of revoting.
So you would be open to primaries
of course.
In
Absolutely.
Michigan and Florida, paid for by private donors?
Absolutely.
I think kind of the nightmare scenario here for Democrats is you can imagine this going on for another 3 months and the fundamental situation not being very different at the end of that than it is today.
Boy, is that a disaster.
We will beat John McCain if we're united. And in order to be united, the loser in the race has to feel that they've been treated fairly within the rules. That's how you keep the party united.
You cannot have a solution that's fair to both campaigns.
What do you do now?
Well,
I would resist a revote for a couple of major reasons. Number one, the revote that's being talked about right now would be a mail-in ballot. And we have never conducted a mail-in ballot in Florida. And in an election that is this important, an experiment like that now is not the time to test that.
I would suggest mail-in. You mail a ballot to every registered Democrat in the state of Florida.
Speaking for myself, I don't think a mail-in is as democratic, if you will, in this context.
The poorer communities would really be disenfranchised in a scenario like that because their addresses are not consistent, and so the odds of them getting a ballot and even knowing about the election are much smaller than middle class and upper middle class populations.
You don't think there is a practical and fair way to hold a do-over election in Michigan?
I'm afraid there isn't, George. There's no way to have a primary. That's state law. That can't be changed, and that can't be paid for. It'd be very difficult to have caucuses. There's 400 or 500 sites that have to be manned. The one possibility would be some kind of a mail-in caucus. That's being explored, but there's some real problems with that too.
Any potential scenario right now that requires a revote would be experimental, would disenfranchise people.
What do you think the fair way to resolve this is?
I'm not making a comment in anything. My favorite saying right now is when you're in a hole, stop digging.
You were involved in the decision to go forward.
I was involved in challenging a broken presidential primary system.
I hear you.
And it is.
I hear you. But you're not now prepared to suggest here what might be a solution, such as going back to what they used to call the firehouse primary, which was a day-long, any drop-in, cast your ballot and leave type of caucus that used to be held.
That is one of the options. There are logistics and expense problems.
We would have a lot of different logistical and legal problems in doing that.
There's a lot of logistics that are involved in that.
All right. I think you could tell from the answers that our two guests earlier gave that a resolution to this question of what to do about those two primaries and the delegates selected therein is not at hand.
Would you favor doing over these primaries?
That's really up to the states.
As the head of the party, you're just going to sit and wait until the states tell you what to do? What if they decide to do nothing? Does that mean their delegations won't be seated?
Well, that's not necessarily. There's two things they can do. One is to have this kind of an alternative process, which we're talking about now. And the other is simply to appeal to the Credentials Committee of the convention, which is controlled actually by the delegates, not by me.
We can't. Democrats cannot go into this convention fighting. I think we've got to have this settled. Whether we're going to have a redo in Michigan and Florida has to be settled pretty quickly so we can figure that out. And then I think we can't, this thing's got to be settled one way or another before we go into the convention.
It's just not going to happen. I think you're going to go to the convention unless one of them quits, and that's not going to happen.
It may go to the convention.
It could go to the convention.
Governor Rendell, could this go to an actual convention?
Yeah, I think so, Tim.
We don't think knockdown, drag-out fights are ever good between Democrats, but it does seem to happen from time to time. But no, we'd much prefer to have this all settled well before we get to the convention, if that can happen.
You're involved in these discussions.
That is true.
Is it fair to say that you're not near an outcome yet?
That is fair. It's fair to say we have discussions ongoing and we don't know which direction we're going to go.
It sounds to me like at this point you simply don't know what's going to happen here, and it's going to be at least a while before you have this figured out.
It'll be a while.
I talked to a lot of Democrats this week who said that this whole morass in Michigan and Florida is not going to get solved unless you step in and take a decisive leadership role. Will you?
Well, what makes you think we already haven't been doing that?
Yes, what makes me think that you're not taking a leadership role? Have you gotten the two campaigns to agree on a common process here yet?
We don't have a proposal yet. We're waiting for the proposal. We have not talked to either campaign about their specifics because it's premature. The states have got to come before the DNC with a plan. The states have got to put a plan on the table first.
Hearing Howard Dean reminded me of the joke about the football coach who kept yelling out, "Give the ball to Leroy," and they wouldn't give it to Leroy, and finally the quarterback hollered over, "Leroy doesn't want the ball." It sounds like Howard Dean doesn't want the ball here. He's telling you folks to work it out.
I've been trying for 8 months. I started on this last July and August, trying to avoid this train wreck.
There was total foreseeability on the part of these states that, yes, this could happen. If this turned out to be a very close race, we could end up with this sort of train wreck scenario. The voters had no idea this thing could turn into such a mess.
It is such a mess.
The Democratic National Committee, the chairman, they were just hard over. You're going to do it our way or not. The bad blood evident between the states and the Democratic National Chairman, Howard Dean, seems to be very deep and very real. I felt so strongly about the right of people's vote to count as they intended their vote that I even sued Howard Dean, and I sued the DNC. I would appreciate it very much if the chairman would get the DNC to sign up to this so we can move on.
You know, I think people are just tired. You know, frankly, they look at this fight and they say, what's going on?
We got an email from a viewer at Washington Week. All it said was that the subject line was Hillary versus Obama, and the body of it was rock, paper, scissors.
What a race.
Where's the adult leadership?
What a race.